Something new. Hey, everybody,
Sure.
welcome to the Prophet Moffatt Show. Today, I got a super special guest, Barry Kleiman, one of my favorite humans on the internet right now, because we are
Oh
in a
my.
time where people are just so mean and malicious and tribal, and it's really disheartening to watch at times. And you are just the opposite, and you're the kind of person who like inspires me to want to be better to other human beings. And I don't know if it's the Grateful Dead vibes in you, the West Coast, San Francisco Bay Area, whatever it is. But I love you, man. You're a great dude.
I thank you, Jay, and ditto. I mean, put it out there. We've never physically broken bread, but I know you.
Yeah.
And I obviously you inviting me on this, I guess says the same. There's something about this connection that works, and so anyway, thank you.
Yeah, you said connection, and we'll dive into that a little bit in a little bit about your book, The Playground Principles, which is really a just a great study on modern day connection with all this technology stuff, but also taking from like old school wisdom, and you're definitely not a spring chicken, and kind of have some of that old school wisdom in you. And I tell people often, because one of my best friends is in his mid 70s, and I said, man, if you can talk to somebody 70 or 80 years old on a regular basis, like how valuable that is for perspective on life.
It is very true, and I think it's something in many ways, Jay. It's why I wrote that book. In many ways, right? Knowledge comes from everywhere. You
Yeah.
know that, and if we can make that apparent, without preaching. I don't want to preach to anybody. I you read my book, I guess, a little bit. I quote. I'm not an original. All I do is quote people, but I'm no hero that's understood to quote Springsteen. But this is what I've learned, and if we can bring it to the forefront for Theo, for my grandkids. Theo's not your grandkid, but you know what I mean? The younger people. I just think it's vital. Otherwise, we've lost all of those lessons. And how
Well,
effing stupid is that? Go ahead.
yeah, no kidding. I've had two people walk by my house while I'm holding my son Theo in my arms, and they're like, "Oh, he's so beautiful. You must be the happiest granddad ever." And I'm like, "Ooh, take that back right now."
Well, I am a grandfather and proud of it, but yes, I do
Ah.
get that. I do get that. Um, yeah, it's true, and there are a lot of forces. I can't remember his first name, Smirkanish. He's a CNN guy, and a guy named Professor Scott Galloway, and they talk about this a lot with young boys and this disconnection. I think they have. I don't remember Scott's new book. I'm going to get it and listen to it, but they talk about it from what's happening uh, to 20 somethings, how they're just getting buried in their basement and they don't get outside and connect. I just hung up with a gentleman named Jay Salmon, who, if you Google Jay, is a pretty smart dude, CEO of Sony Entertainment formerly, and an interesting man. Does not know if the ball is blown up or stuffed. I tell him he's the biggest waste of 6'5" I ever saw, because he's not a basketball guy, but he's 6'5". His painting is hanging right over there. When I wrote the book, I needed a cover. I saw that painting. I called Jay, said, "Can I use your painting?" Because here's a guy who's a CEO of Sony Entertainment and helped Link Hoffman design LinkedIn. I mean, he's a smart dude.
Yeah.
And yet, during COVID, he reacquainted himself with his artwork and all these things. But the playground principles is really just about what we learned in a playground, my playground different than yours, it doesn't matter. It's this ability to do this that we've lost. And this guy, Smirconish and Galloway, they talk about it's a pandemic now. With how did he say? Young kids now, 20 something kids spend less time outside than prison inmates.
Whoa.
Exactly. I just heard that this morning. So screw me. I know nothing, but maybe those guys know something. So this is real.
Yeah,
And I try to bring it to the front.
I've heard a little bit of talk about, these men that are cooped up like this, that when they go out, into the dating world, they're not very appealing to the women at all. I
They
mean,
don't know how to do it.
no. And so when they get on a dating app, even they say even an average looking guy has to swipe like 200 times just to score a coffee date. And I think they even said that like 4 of those 5 coffee dates will ghost him. So he really has to swipe 1,000 times. And I may be messing up those numbers, but
The point's well taken.
yeah, but that's for an average guy. So you take somebody who may not have social skills, who has the odds dramatically stacked against them, and can't even fulfill, just normal human urges, and then feels rejected. And we've got millions of men feeling this way. It's a recipe for just absolute disaster.
That's what those guys are talking about. Galloway's book, I just looked it up. I don't have it, and I'm certainly not pimping his book,
Yeah.
but I'm going to read it. It's called Notes on Being a Man. And he's a pretty, I mean, you're an internet whiz guru. Seriously, I mean, I admire all the work you've done there. But they talk about how it's also a force pulling against these people being human. Like your way around it, Jay. But again, we've never met. But I'm sure if we had dinner, they'd have to shut the place down because they couldn't shut us up.
Yeah.
Because. And so this is what we're pulling against. This is why I wrote the book, and it was my potential contribution to society. I'll just say one more thing because I know you love hoop. Somehow, some way, several pretty big name college coaches heard about my book. I did not send it to them. A friend of mine, Mo Howard, runs something called the Philadelphia Black Basketball Hall of Fame. I've never met Mo, but he played in the NBA. I said, Mo, he had an induction dinner. Can I make a contribution? He said, Barry, how about if you send me some copies of your book and I'll give it out to the inductees? I said, done. No, I wasn't making money,
Yeah. Yeah.
expense. A gentleman named Phil Martelli, who was the head coach at St. Joe for 20 plus years. I got a text from him 4 days later. Barry, Phil Martelli here. I don't know. I just got a copy of your magnificent book and you and I need to talk.
Oh, wow.
He got on a podcast with me. 5 days later, a gentleman named Fran Dunphy, who's a friend at Phil's, he contacted me. Barry, I just hung up with Martelli. Your book, he was on a pod with me yesterday. And so some people get it because they do know that the world changed for the worse when we lost the meritocracy of the playground, which is just, it could be anything, right? But it's human. And it's not a basketball book. It's a book about human connection. So I'm gonna shut up, but it
Yeah.
somehow permeates when you do this. So go ahead, Jay. I'm sorry. I
And no,
hijacked you.
you're fine, man. I'm here to listen to you more than I am to talk. I'm the master at hogging the mic. When I think of playground for me, gosh, like the first thing that comes to mind, we used to play a game called Butts Up, and you would
Perfect. I don't even know
pref-
what it is, but it's perfect.
preferably with a racquetball because it hurts more than the tennis ball. But basically, you have, I don't know, like 10 guys standing up against a wall, and you throw the ball against the wall and it ricochets, and you have to grab it, and you just keep throwing it. And as long as you catch the ball cleanly, you're fine. But the moment that you bobble it or it bounces off a knee, you have to make a dash for the wall and touch it before somebody else grabs the ball, throws it at the wall, and you're safe if you make it there first. But if not, you have to then assume the position and put your butt up in the air, and somebody gets to take the ball and bean you in your butt as hard as they can. Hence the name butts up. And we used to always
Beautiful.
get in trouble by the teachers for playing this game. Um, in a way, I mean, I guess nowadays it would be called bullying, but I mean, and it reminds me in seventh grade too. I had a teacher named Mr. Camp who would give us extra credit in dodgeball if you made somebody cry or you made them bleed.
Oh boy.
Now I don't know if those are playground
Well,
principles.
no, but the point is meritocracy, right? You had to compete.
It was total competing, and it was wild. But I also had little league coaches at the ages of like 11 and 12 that I always credit as being very pivotal in teaching me to be a good sport, and
Yep.
particularly in a loss, and to not be mad at that other person but be thankful that they beat me so that I had a chance to become better. And I used to play billiards when I turned 21 and started going to bars. I hated playing in bars because I would beat everybody. All
Mm,
night long I would just beat everyone, and it actually was detrimental for my
of
game because I would go to the pool hall and I'd play these old Asian men that would just spank me up and down, and I was like, I would rather lose to these guys 9 out of 10 games than to win 10 out of 10 of these drunks.
That's a testament to your personality too, that you want to get better. Seriously, but
Yeah.
that is a lot. Someone said to me, "What are playground principles?" I said, "I'll just tell you the first one: compete and don't cheat. Get better."
So bringing up cheating in basketball too. I mean, obviously, I'm in Portland, Oregon. Portland Trailblazers are my team, always have been. It's been a very dismal, like 5, 6 years as the team has just not been competitive. And recently, Chauncey Billups was arrested for allegations of cheating and playing poker. And I want to stress those words allegations because
Thank you.
I don't trust the FBI, and I don't trust the mafia, and the math just doesn't math very well to me to see why a guy like Chauncey would be involved in that. But who knows? But
Who
um,
knows? I'm glad you
the
stressed allegations, by the way, because I don't know any more than you, but I do like Chauncey. I've always liked him, and something is not clear now. If he did it, Chauncey, no,
totally.
no bueno. Right.
But the silver lining in the whole thing is, I think as a coach, it was kind of time for him to go. I just didn't feel like the
Mm,
players were as competitive as they should have been. And now they got this Tiago Splitter guy who is taken
sure.
over as the interim coach, who you probably know, comes from the
He's a
whole Greg.
Popovich
Yeah,
disciple,
he's a
right?
Greg
Yeah, yeah.
Popovich, and Greg Popovich has got to be one of the top three coaches of all time. And so we're all excited here in Portland to see what these fellows can do.
I think it's. I'm not happy if for anybody. Excuse me. If Chauncey's removal from the picture is a result of something nefarious. I'm not happy about it for anybody, right, including him.
Yeah.
Change, on the other hand, you know, that's competing, right? That's a find a way to win, compete, don't cheat. But the only quote in the book that's mine is the world changed for the worse when we lost the meritocracy of the playground. The meritocracy is, you're not going to win if you can't rebound. And I can use that in any euphemistic way you want. But if you talk about the Trailblazers organization, they were in need of a rebound, right? Because something wasn't working. So I'm hopeful for the organization and for the players, not to any diss to Chauncey at all. But otherwise, playground principle, compete and whatever. So yeah, it's a bummer. I wish everybody well, certainly. But again, you try You're an amazing storyteller. You're a fabulous writer. Seriously, fabulous.
Thank you.
Um, you really are. Um, I love reading your stuff. Um, when when I sat down to write this, um, you must know the book Stephen Pressfield. Nobody wants to read your shit.
I'm familiar with Pressfield, but not
Him.
that book. Yeah.
It's great. It's amazing. Nobody wants to read your shit. I mean, what? You're a writer. Is that the greatest title you ever heard?
It's so, I mean, especially in the age of TikTok brain, ain't nobody wanting to read, ain't nobody got time for that.
And this was before that. But so the point is evergreen in many ways, right? And getting worse as the proliferation of channels, portals, TikTok, YouTube, whatever. So I read his book before writing mine
Oh, smart.
because, yeah, because I'm a plagiarizer. I say it in the book. I am a serial plagiarizer. You name a situation, I'll quote you a song. I know hero that's understood, right? So and the book I would really encourage everybody to read, but there's a small all the book are all vignettes, which again is genius because we all have the attention span of turnips, right? So Steve took this book and he was a screenwriter too and a copywriter or whatever. But there's one or two small chapters in the book about writing a self-help book. I didn't really write my book to be a self-help book. I actually wrote my book as a challenge. But one of the things he talks about, which I knew intuitively, but it was stressed, is don't, in the playground, preach. Don't preach, teach. Don't preach. How's it going to go in the playground? You guys have to do it. Ain't working.
Yeah.
It's just
I,
not
I
working.
I've become so like tiresome of honestly hearing people say anything when
Of course.
their actions could do so much better. And like for like a basketball metaphor, like to me, like running back on defense, like when I see a player who doesn't do that, I'm like,
Oh,
dude, you're letting down your players, your coaches, everyone in the fan, yourself. And like, it's such a selfish thing. And I think I like to see all those little things. I like the saying, and then I don't like it. But how you do anything is how you do everything.
yeah, it's not untrue though.
It really is, and so
Tom Waits,
like
by the way.
um, oh, he did
Sorry,
do that.
can't help myself.
But like I want to love Luka Doncic. So much of me does like him. He's an amazing talent. It blows me away. But then I see him act like a crybaby after he's driving to the rim and doesn't get the foul. And meanwhile, these people are running back the other way. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like, not only I was like, you sh- you're supposed to be a leader. So not
Yep.
only is it bad for you, it's bad for the other guys who are fighting for minutes, who think that this kind of behavior is okay. And it's not, because none of them have the talent you have, but they can try harder than you.
Well, this is leadership, as you said, right? And in many ways, again, the way I tried to write, to Pressfield's point, I tried to tell a million stories from Warren Buffett to Peter Drucker to Pat Riley. Not me. I was just trying to tell this story. The opening quote of the book is from Viktor Frankl. At any moment, man must decide for better or worse what will be the monument of his existence. Do you want does Luka Doncic want the monument of his existence to be not sprinting back on defense and crying at the rim? Or does he want it to be, I don't care if I'm getting the call or not, I'm dunking on your ass? To use a basketball metaphor,
Yeah,
Jordan, he just he just kicked your ass.
always, every time. Like
He
there
just
was,
kicked your ass.
yeah,
He turned out to have some issues otherwise, obviously, but in that forum, Anyway, so you're right, but we have to teach people, otherwise the other side wins, right? In the world of the internet, the guy standing next to the gold Bentley or the whatever, he wins, and that's not meritocracy. That's he that dude would have died in my playground. Pull up in that and then don't get a rebound. See how that works for you. But this is what and Martelli and Coach Dunphy and I've got a couple others on tap. They all kind of agree, and so this is the picture that I was hoping to paint. Pat Riley, no rebounds, no rings. Duh.
Yeah.
Sort of a thing. So I tried to tell it that way, and whether it's successful or not, I don't know. But I was happy to be able to try to tell the story in that book because I think Theo, right, and the inscription in the book is to my grandkids by initials. I said, I just hope this helps you know who I was and what I was about a little more than you might already, because if we don't go that way, meritocracy. Look, I was really proud. I don't know how it evolved, and maybe it's some of your marketing genius, but when you said, you're thinking about getting off the internet, I think it was a good message. However it evolves, I think it was a good message. It was a provocative message to certain people who want to use one forum and make it everything they're about, is coming through this one funnel. So I thought that messaging was great. I have to say one more thing before I forget, because I'm old. I got invited to be on a book club with a couple guys. I don't know, Tom Ruich and Ted Padromo, and it was very sweet. They had me on, feature my book, whatever. But the next week or two, they had I can't remember his first name, David Garfinkel on.
Oh, yeah, I know
A
David.
very talented writer, whatever. And Bond came on, Halbert, and I know you and Bond are. I've never met Bond, but we've had some great kind of online conversations about walking up in the hills above Altadena. I don't know, but he seems like a great dude. But when he came on, and he was talking about what he's trying to teach his kid as it relates to AI and all this sort of thing, and I got hit like a bullseye. I want to ask Bond to come on my podcast because his father wrote the original playground principles in the Boron letters.
Oh, wow.
And this just hit. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it makes sense. Well, it's funny because I have one of the last handwritten
Oh,
copies of the
I,
Boron
I,
letters.
I don't. Mine is digital, but
And
anyway, go ahead. Please talk, because that was my idea.
and when I met Bond for the very first time, it was an amazing dinner. Like his dad, Halbert, was down at the end, and John Carlton was there as well. Guys that just transformed my whole life and opened
Of
up my
course.
mind to what was possible. And Bond was sitting right across from me. And when I read the Boron letters, which were written by Gary Halbert to his son Bond
Thank you.
while he was in prison, and I had always wished that my father had imparted that kind of wisdom or shared those kind of things with me, and I didn't have that. So as I read the letters, I would go into a character. I would basically pretend I was Bond so that
Nice.
I could get this fatherly advice, because the way Gary
Nice.
writes is just
Yep.
so incredible.
Incredible, right?
It is so incredible. And so when I'm sitting across from Bond at this dinner, I was like, dude, I was you. He's like, what? And I was like, I read those and I pretended I was you. And it's funny because, like, full circle, like a couple months ago, I was actually a presenter for Preston, his Bond's
That's
son.
the that's the young man that he was referencing in this book club. So go on. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I was presenting on like how to use AI writing in a way that doesn't seem so robotic, because it's really
Sure.
interesting right now. Like everyone's starting to sound the same. It's
Mm.
like, D minus Johnny, who couldn't pass any grammar test 6 months ago, is all of a sudden Steinbeck on his Ivory Post. And you're like, something doesn't add up here. I actually wrote down a question here too. It's kind
Sure.
of applicable to this right
Please,
now.
yeah,
It
please.
said,
I just wanted to put that out there about Bond because I knew you knew him and I was running my
"Yeah, I
idea
love
by you,
Bond.
but I'll shut up. Go ahead.
He's so great." But you wrote that like connection can't be automated in the era of like AI and remote everything. What do you think are a few practical ways people can build real relationships again?
Jay, Barry,
Yeah,
I know you're busy. 2 minutes. That effing podcast you did with, but incredible. Um, I don't know what else to say, but to just like kind of give you a thumb up on Instagram, seeing pale and compare it to the way it struck me. Thanks. I really appreciate it. Maybe we'll catch up one of these days at a Blazers game.
I love it. I do something similar when I drive. I play like telephone roulette, and I just go through my contacts and I spin it, and then I just stop and I just call the person. And nobody calls people anymore. It's
Hello.
and
No pun
and
intended.
so sometimes it's funny because I'll call somebody I haven't talked to in 6 or 7 years, and I was like, dude, you were next on the dial. What's up? And people are blown away. I also, teach something in my niche famous program uh, on Facebook. We all open it every day, and you see like 6 or 7 friends have birthdays today. And
Oh yeah.
sometimes people will go and just comment like "Happy trip around the sun" or "Happy birthday" or a little emoji, and it's a nice little gesture, but it's the same one that
Same
150
one.
other people are making. And if all you do is just grab your phone and make a video like, "Hey Barry, happy birthday, man! I'm thinking about you today. Hope you have a blast." Like that's it. Eight
You answered
seconds.
the question, right? You answered the question. Turn a digital world analog. That's the answer to my question. Find a way to turn a digital world analog. That's it. Anyway.
I've been
Um,
fascinated recently on using flyers to get leads, and especially like in our neighborhood. I was thinking for my son, like he really loves sourdough bread, and I was like, I bet you if we cook sourdough bread, we could probably just write a little flyer and hand it out right here in the neighborhood saying like, hey, I'm Dominic, I'm 16 years old, I love sourdough bread, and every month I'm going to make a new one, and if you'd like me to deliver it to you, like that would crush. We could like sell out that in no time. And
100%. And the upside for Dom is far exceeds the money he's going to make.
yeah, I mean, totally. Yeah, we're trying to prepare him for like adulthood and money and
All
how
those things.
all the thing communication but I love the idea of I'm a big believer kind of in pendulum theory. There's a great book by Roy Williams and um, gosh, I can't believe a buddy of mine is Michael Drew. But they would talk about how things are so cyclical and they will come back like
Sure.
every 8 years or so. And I think as we are moving so far into the Star Trek era and Jetsons style stuff, um, there is this affinity and appreciation for a handwritten letter, a phone call, a hug. I mean, like just
Thank you. I actually say that all the time. A hug. Just give somebody a hug. What's the problem?
do my birth name is actually Jason Hug?
No way.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah.
How cool.
Yeah. It's a beautiful, wonderful name.
How, where did that go? Where did it come from? Why isn't it
Well,
still?
my stepfather raised me since I was like 1 years old, and
Gotcha.
so
Okay.
I took on the name early on,
Okay.
and
Okay.
then I got cemented in as Prophet Moffat, and then
Yeah, that's fine. I'm happy to know that story though.
But
Um,
I've been thinking about like if I release music or do like an art thing away from internet marketing type stuff, that maybe I would use that as my music.
yeah, I love it. I mean, it's if nothing else, maybe on some sort of bio or whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
it's real.
Are there any parallels? Because both of us are big Grateful Dead fans. You actually proposed to your wife at Winterland, and
Closing of the Winterland,
is there any parallels
Terrapin Station. Go ahead.
with Grateful Dead culture and playground principles?
I mean, I'm going to say 100% yes, and then I'm gonna figure it out. You know. So here's one. Um, um, Somebody wrote in actually after the book club that I was on with Ted and Tom. Somebody was very sweet, and you might even know Teresa. She wrote, you know, Barry's presentation of the book was really great, but I think it's one of the best books you'll ever read on connection with self and others. And I said, Teresa, that's very sweet, but the best book I ever read was Bruce Springsteen's Born to Run. And if you want to listen to something, Jay, that will, I know you're actually one of the guys who reminded me to listen to um, books as you're falling asleep. You reminded me of this. And I can't remember which one it was. Yours, I can't remember the one book you referenced. I think Kennedy might read. I don't. It doesn't matter.
Oh yeah,
So
I listened to Psycho Cybernetics by
yeah,
Ted
there it is. Thank
Kennedy.
you. I couldn't
Yeah,
remember the name. So Bruce reads his book. He reads it. And if there's a better storyteller in the world, then please introduce me to him because I'm a sucker for great stories and storytelling. And, you know, as you know, my book is about connection, but I think connection with self is oxygen. And if you're not really connected with yourself, you're just walking around pretending, right? And Bruce talks deeply in his book about his depression and how it almost killed him. And somebody said, I want to be that guy up there on the stage. And he said, so do I, because he talks about very deeply. That's not him. That's a way to save his own ass.
yeah.
And it's very deep and it's intense. And if you, I don't want to butcher him telling the story, but to go back to your question, he said that he saw the Grateful Dead when he was young down, I want to say it was in Asbury Park Convention Center. I personally have been to any number of Bruce concerts. FYI, my son is Benjamin Kleiman, and Benjamin Kleiman. If your real name is Hug, Jason Hug, my son's real name is Benjamin Boss Kleiman. I'm a
Oh,
Springsteen. A true story. I'm a Springsteen fan. But I did propose to my wife closing in the winter, and Bruce talks about when he first saw the Dead. And you're a musician, and you appreciate artistry and all. He didn't get it. You know, he said, yeah, they're okay. You know, I mean, but because Bruce's sound is kind of he's playing that Stratocaster in a very edgy way, and Bob Weir plays these beautiful melodic chords on a Gibson hollow body, which it's the only real guitar. I mean, I've got a couple of guitars, totally different, paradigm of music, right? But
totally,
Bruce
totally.
said later, later he said, but really, what I came to realize what they were about was community and connection.
The
So this is this evolution of thought, right? This maturity. So if you want to answer, I hope I answered your question because that is the connection for me.
it
When you
is
go to a
to
Dead
me
show,
the most
that's it.
successful band of all time, bar none, not even close second that exists. There's no band or artist that I think people drive around to and sleep in the parking lots over and over and over again and like tattoo the dang things on themselves. And it's interesting, like I went to 3 Dead and Company concerts in Vegas
Oh,
last
I
year,
remember you talked about that.
and
Yeah,
somebody was asking me about, like, well, who you going with? I'm like, I don't know, 17,000 of my friends. Like,
correct,
I don't
correct.
need to like go to a Dead concert with a friend. I'm like, they're all my friends. And it's nice too, like when you're out and about, you're at Home Depot in the lumber aisle, and somebody sees your hat or
Yep.
whatever, they give you a nod, or it's just instant connection for sure.
Instant fist bump, right? I mean, instant
Always.
connection. Yeah. So
Um,
so that's the answer to my question. There is, and again, if you know about it as a marketer, but if we can build community, we have a chance.
One of the things a question here, I said, like, what's the cost of disconnection? Like, what happens in your views, like when teams or families or communities lose touch with those playground principles? And like, what does that disconnection look like in real life? You talked about Springsteen being depressed, but what's that look like in real life when you
I mean,
don't have that?
yeah. On a personal basis, it definitely is depression. I mean, I think I heard this guy, Scott Galloway, say something. He said, put an orca in a fish tank by themselves and see what happens.
You mean SeaWorld?
Disconnection. Well, but but they're in with others. So like,
Okay.
when you isolate, not, I have a very dear friend. I just talked yesterday or the day before. He called me yesterday. I've known him since I'm 19. I was his camp counselor, but he also came to my home and detox from vodka, try to kill himself with vodka.
Ugh.
And he called me yesterday to say, I need to call. Today's the day to call you and say thank you, because it was 18 years today that I was sober, and you and Marcy, my wife, were a big part of that, and blah, 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 blah. And he said, because addicts get disconnected.
Yeah.
They get disconnected in a corporate life. Because again, I was a headhunter for 50 years, a scant 50. I just wrote to somebody the other day. I'm building a program based on playground principles to go into corporate organizations and get them to reunite as opposed to disaggregate. As a headhunter, the disaggregation of companies, the disconnection, kept me in business. Right? He's no good. I'll fire his ass. My
Yeah.
boss sucks. I'm quitting. Okay. For me as a headhunter, it's a symphony. I get to fill a job. As a human being, it's like, this is not that effing hard. Get
Yeah.
into a room. Let's figure this out. A toxic locker room, Jay, to go back to sports, you can't win. Bill Russell won 11 championships. You can argue he was a plumber. He played. I don't give a shit. You still have to perform against the competition that's in front of you to keep continuity of message, of culture, of whatever, right? So the
Yeah.
cost is enormous, and I don't think people measure it enough as a loss or a profit, but it's enormous. And if you sat down to spend time thinking about it, families, divorce, uh, whatever. So it's enormous. I hope I
Yeah.
answered your question. Sorry.
You're all
Don't get me
good.
started.
Um, no, I'm glad I got you started. It reminds me, I'm literally sitting down writing a letter to a judge right now.
Oh
Um,
yeah, that thing. Shit.
well, this is different thing,
Okay.
but the the letter is basically, I have a loved one who's going away to prison for a long
Oh boy.
time, and
Mm.
part he's an addict and got caught up in addiction throughout life, and but there was a moment before COVID where he'd had like 7 years clean, and I became friends with his entire community of recovery, like friends, and they were some of the most amazing people I'd ever come across, people that had a
Mm-hmm.
second chance at life, and they looked at life so much different than people that have never gone through those kind of extreme problems. And um, but when COVID happened, they started relapsing and falling off like crazy, because all of a sudden they lost connection. And that's the
Hello.
one thing that addicts need more than anything is connection. And if you look at the um, just the ramifications of the shutdowns, not even like the business and money, but just like the amount of drugs and depression that happened, it may be worse than the disease in itself that happened. And
I
it's
think that's right, by the way. I think I would get lambasted for saying it, but if you're saying it, I'm agreeing with you. I think it was a pandemic in and of itself.
Yeah, I mean, there was multiple layers to it, and not to politicize it or whatnot, which people love to
Right.
do. There's ramifications that are going to be around for decades
Yep.
because of it, and you think also just like lack of connection that nobody believes anybody anymore. We don't believe the politicians. We don't believe the scientists. We don't believe anything. And it's interesting to see how we're going to rectify these kind of things, which is why I started off our conversation saying like how much I appreciate you as a person, because we need these type of role models and just common sense beings to help bridge and bring us together, because all of us are so much more alike than we are different. And we
No
spend
doubt.
we spend 90% of our time arguing our 10% difference instead of celebrating that and connecting. And it's really wild to watch from afar, from someone who I don't feel like I align with much of anything. I like to be a very fluid individual, and I understand I don't know a whole lot about a lot of things. So I would rather listen and try to understand, which is all new to me too, because 10 years prior, I would have loved to be on the soapbox with the megaphone telling you how it is. But it just brings back the importance, I think, of spending time with people who have seen more than you. And
And with yourself too, right? I mean, like really, I'm looking for a quote. I am totally listening to you, but I just quoted, do you know who Ray Dalio is?
yeah,
So he wrote his book Principles. I just wrote a LinkedIn post about it because my book is basically principles. My principles do not need to be yours. I'm cool. I
yeah,
mean, maybe I'm not cool, but
yeah,
whatever. But you need to have them. You need to have North Stars. And one of the things Dalio said is, I just want to be right. I don't care if the right answer comes from me. This is like, where did we lose that?
that's so
It's
funny. I was in a jewelry shop 2 days ago, and got into a conversation with the guy, and he was like clearly an environmentalist, and as am I. And but I was talking about some restrictions on mushrooms, and he was basically saying that none of the mushrooms should be picked at all, and because they feed birds and decomposing. And I was like, okay. And so I started asking him questions because I pick mushrooms. And so I was trying to
right.
better understand like why he thought the way
Sure.
he did. Because if I was doing something that was detrimental to the forest, which I didn't think I was, I
Of
wanted to
course.
be educated on it. And so I kept asking him like, well, why? How come? These questions. And he started taking it as a personal attack where I was just seeking to understand. I was giving him a chance to like bring me to his side. And the dude essentially kicked me out. He's like, "What do you want?" He's like, "Are you going to buy anything?" Or and I was like, "Well, I just wanted to better understand what you were saying to me to see if you knew something I didn't." But it was wild, and like I was
So
like,
this again, Jay, this speaks to we've lost our ability to have a conversation.
"Yeah,
And again, in the playground, that it could be your what was your game called? Butts up, or what was your
butts
game
up,
called?
yeah, yeah,
Whether it's butts up, basketball, I write about it in the book. This is not a basketball book. Your playground could be any laboratory of learning, but the learning has to be how to have a conversation. It has to be to learn to connect in real time. I don't care how many fucking likes you have or whatever.
yeah."
It's like I never met John Carlton. I never met Bond, but I'm certain As I know John played high school basketball and he played guitar because then you had on stuff. But when I saw Bond, the first thing came to my mind is his dad wrote the effing playground principles before I did in the boron letters. And the point being, allow yourself to like get lessons from everywhere and get better. This guy, it sounds to me, was just dug in and have, again, that's not acceptable in the playground. Go tell an old head in a Philly playground that, that's not the way it is. Right.
Yeah,
Good
I think
luck.
he got. I think he got a little disturbed because I told him I sold. I told him I was a salesman, and
Mm,
and because it was a jewelry shop and they had like all these
okay, gotcha.
rocks and gems, I was talking. I was like, it's interesting how one person could think this piece of art is worth $200, where another person thinks it's worth $20,000, and I was because I advertised this necklace for sale for
Mm,
$2,500, and it was of a religious figure who's
cool.
very controversial in this area, and I got so many hate comments from people like that isn't worth anything, you idiot, and I was like, okay, but then somebody from Denmark on eBay bought it, and I was like, okay.
Well, the internet. I mean, you wrote about it. It can be pretty toxic. I have a nephew who's on the PGA Tour. He's six-time winner on PGA Tour, maybe arguably the most popular guy in social media
Oh
on
wow.
on the PGA. His name's Max Homa. He had to get off because as popular as he is, and he's the best dude. I mean, I've known Max since he's this effing big. You know what I mean? And whenever we're in the same New York Times mini thread every morning talking shit to each other with
Yeah,
my
yeah,
kids. But he's so popular, but he writes one thing, you're a fucking loser, because that's the internet,
yeah.
right? And somebody, who was it that said the other day, you'll find most of the vitriol comes from people who don't really have a life, but they
Yeah.
do have a platform, which is why when I read your post about getting off and your email about it, you know, it's not unthought provoking, but you still have to try to find ways to connect. If you're going to be in that modality, the playground, the internet, the grocery store, to me, it's incumbent on each of us to find a way to make it to connect, even if you never be friends with that person, unless you're going in to be, pardon my language, but I know you well enough to know your audience won't be a friend if I call somebody a dickwad. But it, if that's your goal, you know, that's your goal, but that's not my purpose. I know it's not your purpose. The idea is to connect. And if you're disconnected, then go find some room to hang out in where everybody wants just to be
Yeah,
DB.
I'm not even convinced nowadays that a lot of the hateful comments on social media are even real.
They're
I
not. Most of them are not.
I
Yes, I
think
agree.
that there is a huge amount of, I'm not going to name the countries, but adversary countries that
Sure.
basically insert certain things into social media just to get us to argue with each other. And we take the bait constantly.
Well, that's a great issue. It'd be an amazing talking point. I write a weekly newsletter, but it's that comment, which I agree. I would love to find a way to filter that into the sort of messaging thread that I've been putting out there because I do agree with you. And honestly, it permeates so many things. And so this is why you really have to, be ultra selective. When I hear somebody say that, again, you don't have to like Springsteen music, but if you're going to get on a site that's lauding him and say he's whatever, call him. I mean, that's not real. Is that how you're going to spend your time? Even if you are real, but we guys like you who have a platform, we need to make that message
Did I
apparent.
tell you my friend? I have a friend named David Barry who recently created a documentary called Tramps Like Us. It's all about Springsteen
I
fans.
think you, I think you, I think you've mentioned it, and if you did, I apologize for dropping it because I would watch it in a heartbeat, of course.
Yeah, so I think I know that uh, um, they did one showing because he crowdfunds the whole thing. So I'm not sure if it's
Sure.
available just yet, but Tramps Like Us, um, and I'm sure you must know. Like my business partner Jimmy used to be the musical director for Clarence Clemens for 10 years.
Right. Sure. Yeah.
So
Bruce speaks very highly. He didn't mention Jimmy, but Clarence's side projects, as it were.
yeah,
You know,
so
I did
Jimmy
not know Jimmy was their musical director. How cool.
So Jimmy got to play with Bruce quite a few times,
Mm,
and
mm.
yeah, I have some video like in some
Did
small
he
clubs in
like
Jersey.
Bruce?
Uh, like personally or musically?
Yeah. Yeah. Personally.
Yeah, he seemed like I don't know that he got to spend a ton of time with him,
Sure. Yeah.
but I mean, yeah, he seemed like a cordial guy and like just super impactful, and I think really respected his story and his just songwriting and impact that he had, and yeah,
Yeah.
I
I mean,
mean,
musically, you don't need to, but the stories in and of themselves,
yeah.
right? You're a writer. I'm a writer. I'm not Jason,
Um,
but whatever. But the stories alone are just, there's so many lessons in those stories and
Totally.
storytelling, right? But anyway, so yeah, like I said, you and I could probably go on for a long, a long, long
Totally.
time.
Let me
Yeah,
let
you
me
got,
throw this up here. The playground principles. I put up a link here. If you guys want to grab
oh
it off
wow,
of Amazon, you can go to jasonmoffat.com/playground. That'll link you right over to his book. One of the things I dig about it. I was sitting yesterday reading it in the parking lot of my son's theater class, and I am a fan of quick reads, and so this thing definitely reads really fast,
that was the goal. Nobody wants to
and
read your shit.
it reads well, man. It's a really it's a good book, and I think it's more than a good book. It's just like a really great message that I think we all kind of need to slow down and think about and tap into a little bit more because we're getting so disconnected from so many things. And I think it's easy for us to blame the internet too for a lot of this disconnection. But
Of
at the same
course,
time, I always like to make pros and cons lists. And we can make a huge con list about all the ways the internet disconnects us, but I wouldn't even know you if it weren't for the internet.
agreed.
And there are so many ways that this internet can actually build connection as well. And so as much as I kind of like the idea of getting off of it, I would miss so many things because I have hundreds, if not thousands, of friends that I can reach
Yeah,
at the push of a button.
you're a rock star, seriously, and I would not recommend. But you're a marketing whiz. You understand list segmentation. you know,
Yeah.
well, you know what I mean, right? I mean, and so I'm with you. I mean, I told you a couple stories today about connections that I've made here, and I know if I sat with you, we would have a great freaking time. We'd play
I
some
think
music together, and we'd have fun.
I think the thing that bothers me with the internet um, is it gives me anxiety, like that I know I have to do something in the future, whether it's tomorrow or next week. Like when people ask me, like, "Oh, hey, here's my Calendly to book a call," I'm like, I might be surfing or out in the
Right, right.
woods, like hunting mushrooms, or like. But if I know I have to do that thing, it takes me out of that moment. Like I can't just be lost in the woods because I got to think about the real world that exists out there. And I've always avoided being on anyone else's time. Um, I mean, heck, we've been talking about doing this interview forever. And it's like, it's because of that. Like, I don't like scheduling times because then
It makes sense. I mean, it does. That's who you are. That's your spirit. That's how you are, Jason Prophet Moffat, because you have figured out one of the questions in the playground principles is what game are you playing? That's a really profound
What
question.
game are you
And
playing? What do you mean? What do you mean
you
by
know,
that question?
what game are you playing? You don't want to be scheduled. You do your best when you're out, in the surf and mushrooms, and you roll best. You flourish best in the game that you just laid out to me. You don't want to be tied down by a calendar. You don't want to know and because of that, it took us this. That's who you are.
Yeah.
Could you improve and get better? Maybe, but is that what you want to make? But you only know that when you know what game you're playing. I was not a great shooter, anecdotal to basketball, but anecdotal to life. I was not a great shooter. I could shoot, but other guys were better. So, the homepage of my personal brand website says share the ball. I was a
Yeah.
really good passer. If you
That's
were
how,
open, I was finding you. And that's how I got to
yeah,
exist. I'm 5'9". I'm a good athlete, but I ain't. So you
that's
have to know
why
what game you're playing.
one of the most favorite players for me ever is John Stockton.
Of
It's like
course. He
because
knew what game he was playing. That dude knew
he
what game he was playing.
yeah, yeah, give the ball to Malone.
Well, but okay, right? Okay. And that is what I meant by it. And again, it's a euphemism for so many things, right? But until you know that, and the internet can pollute that message in your mind because, well, I should be Jason. He's crushing it with, I can't be Jason. I'm Barry. Could I be a better version of me? I can. It took me 5 years to figure out how to write this book. The book
Wow.
has been in my brain for, Jay, I describe myself in the book. I'm a 74-year-old kid, now 75, from a Philly playground. That's who I am.
Yeah.
Old and hopelessly immature. But when I finally figured out my game and how to tell that story, so it's important. That's what I mean by what game are you playing?
I love the question because I'm asking it of myself, and I'm starting to realize I think the game that I like to play so much is kind of this spontaneity type
It
thing.
is.
As a kid, like a freestyle rapper. As an entrepreneur, I'll like write my speech like 10 minutes before I give it. I'm a last minute Larry on everything, and I think I subconsciously do it because it gets me anxiety in a way, but that anxiety is something I embrace and I like because it creates nervousness. Because most things in life are pretty easy for me to coast through and they
Yep.
don't challenge me all that much. But when I put myself on the spot, it creates a little bit of nervousness. And I think deep down, I like that. And one of the things I've been contemplating about doing, like, I don't know how I want this podcast to work out. I don't know that I even
Sure.
want to do it. I was gonna send you a list of these questions I wrote down, but I was like, I don't want to do that because I don't want it to be this contrived interview. I just want to have a discussion with you. And even as I have all the notes and questions here, I find myself not even wanting to read them because it's taking away from the spontaneity of what's really organic. And so one of my heroes and people that I really loved as a kid was Art Bell on AM radio. He used to have like a paranormal AM radio show,
Don't know
A-
the name.
aliens, chupacabras, JFK, like conspiracy stuff. Um, but one of the things I really liked is he had the card line, and so he would open it up, and weirdos and randoms from around the world would call in, and you never knew what you were going to get. And
Sure.
it kind of reminds me of there's the most popular comedy podcast in the world right now is a thing called Kill Tony, where they just bring comedians out of a bucket. They just draw their name and they get a minute on stage. Sometimes it's incredibly hilarious. Sometimes they absolutely bomb and it's horrible.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
it's the unknowing that's really exciting. And I think what I may do with this podcast is create a wild card line, and I just go live and I just invite whoever's on, and we just go with it.
You have a significant enough following to probably do that, and as a friend and as someone who's, I say I talk a lot, but I'm a really good listener. I think knowing you and listening to you and observing you for the time that I have, I think that's a very good idea because it's Jason and it's something that you would uniquely do. I'm not saying you're the only person in the world that could do it, but you can do it. And that is an interesting game for you to be playing. I call myself a serial plagiarizer. I would call you a serial procrastinator, but you make it work.
Yeah.
That's the point. Now, my plagiarism works for me. I just quote smart people. That's all I effing know. You get energy, and I drive my friends crazy. That's okay.
Well, it's interesting.
You get energy from procrastinating, right, Jay? When I got to do it, showtime, baby.
Yeah, it's wild. I like that you. I don't like the word plagiarism because it has such negative connotations to it. I think what you're doing is actually really smart, and it actually is not you specifically, but just the idea inspired me for my book club and for my new YouTube channel. But it's basically every book that's sitting back here, every page is loaded with some type of different wisdom. And
Absolutely.
instead of me trying to rewrite it or reorchestrate it with my own twist and make it my own, it makes so much more sense for me just to go, hey, here on page 37, Barry says this. And then I give you your props. I give my
100.
takeaway from it,
Yep.
and that way I can still look smart like I'm a reader, but the point I'm trying to make is I think people would be better served by crediting their sources and where they're learning things than trying to pass it off as their own, because one, people are smart, they just know, and even when they
Sure.
don't know, the subconscious knows when people are trying to pull a fast one on other people.
And why would you when you all you have to do? You know what? If you throw me a good pass, all I want is a fist bump. We're good. Attribution. I wouldn't have scored without Barry's pass, or I wouldn't get an assist without Jay making it. How hard is that? This is connection. This is just so easy, and one of the playground principles is attribution. I mean, this is the way we connect. So to do what you want to do is freaking genius to me. I have a post I'm working on finishing, and right now the opening line might be once in a while you get shown the light in the strangest of places if you look at it right. It's
Right.
one of my favorite quotes, right?
Yeah.
But it's really about an interview I did with two coaches yesterday, but my takeaway from it was completely different than their message. I think they'll appreciate it, which is one of them said to the other, I wish I would have known you 20 years ago because I would have done this differently. And I said, well, actually you did know him 20 years ago, but you just saw the light today as he's talking about it. And so this is an important lesson in life, to really listen to people all the time, all the way. Otherwise the years pass. I'm 75 years old. I'm just
Yeah.
looking to squeeze out another 30, but who knows? So
Yeah.
anyway, but I think it's smart, Jay, because when you know the game you're playing, I don't know if you got to this point in the book, then you can optimize the time. Because I wrote about optimization in the book. Because when you know, what did Drucker say? There's no point working on your weaknesses when you can get better at your strengths.
Yeah, I used to really punish myself because if you've ever taken a Colby assessment analysis, I'm a
Mm,
5194. At least I was when I took it. And a nine is for quick start. Like I'm a greyhound out of the
yeah,
gates.
I get
I'm
that.
as good as they get on starting something new, but on the follow through, I'm a one. And I used to be really like down upon myself about it, and it was like I got to figure out way, and I can finish if there's 5 minutes left and I need to finish, but it's doesn't excite me. And so I realized that instead of me trying to work on that, I needed to put myself in situations where I was just initiating things and I was lobbing things to other people. I was John Stockton. I didn't have to be the guy dunking or scoring.
Just
I just
right.
had to be the
Yep.
guy setting it up for somebody else. And to spend more time in my power was so much smarter than me working on those weaknesses. And I'm glad you brought that
And
up.
that's what, well, okay, and I'll leave it with this. That's what game you're playing. And when you recognize that, right, that you're the startup guy, you're
Yeah.
more than happy to throw that pass and then just let's go next next time down, kind of a thing. That's what I again try to illuminate because that is true. Don't walk into a playground jacking threes if you haven't made one since the 5th of November in 2010.
Yeah, totally. What?
Anyway,
Yeah, I love it. Hey, everybody, head over to Amazon.
thank you, Jay.
Let's see. I got the Converse on here. Is that what's on the painting? The Converse in front of you?
Well, yeah. If I could turn my thing around, you'd see there's a large print right this over here on my living room wall. It was painted by my friend Jay Samet, who does not know if the ball is blown up or stuffed. He's the biggest waste of 6'5". But I found a story about sneakers over a telephone wire, and one part of urban legend is it originated in Philly, and I am originally from Philly. So that whether it's true or not is inconsequential. I found a way to put it in the book that way. And but yeah, it was a I'm glad you read it. I think the message overall, whether it comes from me or anybody, is, and this time is a finite thing. And if you can zero in on, I mean, somebody called you grandpa, which is more funny than anything else, but it is an illumination of the last chapter in the book I wrote is about a book called 4,000 Weeks. And if you want to tighten your ass up, read 4,000 Weeks. It's written by a Scottish dude who lives in Brooklyn, and he dropped F-bombs with a Scottish brogue that's the most entertaining thing you ever heard. But it talks about 4,000 weeks, which if I said to you, how many weeks you think actuarially you get in life? Some people have 10,000, 4,000. And it gets pretty like, whoa, so I talk a lot as a coach about clock and score.
Yeah.
You're down 20, don't be jacking up half-ass shots because you're down 20 and the clock is going. If you're up 30, you might take that three and not worry as much about it, so to speak. So knowing clock and score, euphemism, call it what you will,
Yeah.
but that's how you win games and that's how you lose
There's
games,
nothing more
right?
frustrating than a player who does not have awareness of the clock. And you learn a lot of this by being a gambler, because when you got money on the when you got money
Right,
on the
right.
line and you're like, dude, you're getting paid $7 million for this. I got $700 on this game, and I know the clock management 10 times better than you. What's going on here?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, all these are euphemisms, right? I try to bring them to light without preaching, but to use anecdotal commentary. If any one or two struck you, I'm thrilled. The thing I'll say, and it was important to me, and whether or not you agree with this as my marketing Sherpa guru, whatever, I decided in the book and on all the podcasts I do and the articles I write, I don't want somebody to opt into a list. I say to them, my email address is barry@barrykleiman.com. You want to write to me, I'm a connector. You don't need to opt into a list. Just put playground principles in the subject and I will write back to you. It's not a marketing funnel. It's not
Yeah.
one of those, whatever portals of what are some of those autoresponder?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's not what I want,
Yeah.
because if I'm with you, I want to connect with you because I figure that's my best bet at making an impact and us making an impact, and then one touches one and then maybe two touch it, that sort of a thing. So I don't know if you agree with that strategy, but I bring it up because if anybody is interested, barry@barrykleiman.com. You want to talk more playground principles? Here I am. I get back to everybody. Maybe if I get 10 million responses, Jay, it'll be hard, but I don't see that.
Yeah. No, I actually learned something from Gary Vaynerchuk very early on, and he was a prime example of somebody who would
I like
who
it.
would respond to everyone, and everyone would get a response. And I think at some point
Of
everyone
course.
kind of had to. But I mean, I've had conversations with him, and what's crazy is like even seeing him in real life and him remembering you after years, and it's like that level of connection is really deep, and people appreciate it when you just remember them. And so no, I think I wouldn't do it that way, but I like that you do it that way, and I can see why it would work for many people. So Barry, thanks for coming.
Well, whether or not it works, it's me. So
Yeah,
go
no,
ahead,
then
sir.
then it works, and that's great. Hey, man, I love you. I appreciate having you on, and thanks for writing this book, and thanks for asking that question. What game you're playing? It was actually really helpful for me, and I encourage other people to ask themselves that question.
I mean, otherwise, what are you doing?
Yeah, sitting on the bench, probably.
Well, what are you doing? Well, the coach hates me. Guess what? Go get a rebound. Go get four loose balls. Contribute. You're getting playing.
Yeah.
But bitching, Anyway, thank you, man. Congrats in person, or as it were, well, certainly on your older boy. But Theo is just a light. I show his picture to my wife.
Yeah, he's
We're
great.
like I'm serious. We're baby holics, because we're grandparents now. So
Yeah.
on my Facebook is my friend took a picture of his son, um, um, with holding playground principals. It's my my Facebook profile picture, and I can't not
Oh
have it.
yeah, it's great.
It's,
You know,
it's,
I
it's just too cute. So congrats.
debated whether or not to even show our kids online,
Of course,
as I think a lot of parents do. And but
my
I'm
son.
also aware that I have so many friends that have watched my journey for 10 years, and feel like a closeness in a sense. And I was like, yeah, they I think I don't know if they deserve, but they deserve to
I know what you
be
mean.
part of the.
Well, I'm thrilled that I've seen that face because it's gorgeous, and I know how excited it's made you, and I know the impact it's had on your life. I could just tell.
Yeah,
Again, I'm a good listener. I can tell by your vibe and your
yeah,
writing, and the kind of the general direction that this struck you very profoundly, which it should.
yeah.
And so congrats to you guys on that, and because I know you didn't do it by yourself.
Yeah, thank you.
Uh,
Thank you, buddy. All right, man.
Stay safe, please,
I
Jay.
will.
Appreciate you, man.
Take care, buddy.
Be well.